Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 226th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. How do you manage your emotions? Now, it is Wednesday morning. If you are a regular listener of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, you likely checked your little podcast directory and saw that there were no episodes. That is my bad. And that actually last night, my wonderful VA, Christine, sent me a message and she said, "Hey, Katie, do you have a podcast episode to go out tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, shoot, I don't." And I was in the middle of mom mode. I was cooking dinner and it just didn't work out last night to get the podcast episode recorded. And now here we are in the morning. I got my daughter off to school. I'm getting my son off to school in 20 minutes. And now I'm sitting down at the computer thinking like, what am I going to talk about? So naturally, I picked a really heavy, complex issue to try to dive through very quickly. And I hope that you guys find a lot of value in this discussion. Again, it's going to be quick. I've got a couple notes in front of me. I'm actually doing a Bible study at church, and we kind of went through some of these concepts, and I just really wanted to share them with you because it's been so helpful for me. I was thinking, gosh, this is probably going to be helpful for you guys. And I know that Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, it's like, this is about side hustles and making money, but I also understand that emotional and mental health can get in the way of your side hustle. It can get in the way of you starting, of seeing it through to fruition. It can be the difference between if you do something and it's not successful, between you quitting or continuing to go. It could be the difference between you starting a side hustle but then beating yourself up and thinking that you suck the whole time versus having joy in the process. So I really believe that this conversation is an important one. So I hope that you all get a lot out of it. I hope that I am able to convey it well in the short time that I have. So let's dive in. Now, I guess I want to start off why am I talking about this? I am talking about this not because I am the expert. You all know I'm a dietitian. I am not a mental health professional, but I am a student. I am a student who has been committed for years to improving my mental health, my emotional health, improving my mindset. And the deeper I've gotten into entrepreneurship, the more I've realized, gosh, whole health, yes, it's important, but I think so often we disregard our minds. We talk about getting enough sleep. We talk about managing our stress, which is kind of like high level, not really deep into mental health. We talk about eating right, staying hydrated, moving our bodies, but mental health is just as important as every other aspect of our health. And I really think that the deeper I've gotten into my own mental health journey, the more joy I have in my life. And that's what I want for all of you guys. The little phrase I have behind this brand Dietitian Side Hustle is live your dreams, change the world. And that's what I want for each and every one of you. I want you to go out there and live your dreams and change the world because of it, because dietitians are world changers. But if you struggle with mindset, or if you struggle with mental health, or you struggle with like poor emotional health, and maybe you don't even realize you do, you might be like, what are you talking about, Katie? But if you do, that's going to impact your ability to live your dreams and change the world. And I want each and every one of you to make the most of this one life that you get to live. And that's why I have conversations like this on the podcast. So let's talk about emotions. So I used to think that there were good emotions and bad emotions. Now, most of you know that I'm a very positive person, and I do think that's one of the best parts about me, but it could also get me in trouble when I start thinking that other emotions are bad. Now, some of you are parents, and even if you're not, many of you have seen the movie Inside Out. Inside Out is a cartoon. They've had a few sequels now, and it has been the best really description of how emotions work. And also how there are no bad emotions and how we need emotions, the full spectrum of emotions. And I was at an event earlier this year and they had us, they gave us this emotion wheel. So it was a wheel with all the emotions, not just like the basics, happy, sad, fearful. It had like all the detailed levels of emotions. And we went through it with coloring crayons and we colored which ones that we grew up thinking were good and which ones we grew up were thinking were bad. Like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. If I feel this way, there's something wrong with me. And this was a really powerful exercise for me because what I realized is, for whatever reason, growing up, I decided that anger was a bad emotion. I should never feel angry. I decided that sadness was a bad emotion. If I was sad, there was something wrong with me. And it was such a cool exercise because after we were done coloring these emotions, we drew a picture with all the colors and we showed how, like, if we drew a picture with just the colors that we thought were positive from this emotion wheel, it wouldn't be as beautiful as the whole picture with all the colors. So anyways, it was a really fun exercise, but it was very eye-opening for me to recognize that I had put labels on emotions as good or bad, something I'd never thought about before. Now, I would encourage you guys, and I'll mention this again at the end of the episode, but I would encourage you to go Google emotion wheel. You could also Google like feelings wheel. If you Google emotion wheel, one of the first ones that's going to come up is calm.com. Calm.com, Calm's an app. It's a really cool app. And it's this emotion wheel. And what I like about it is it really breaks down emotions and it helps us to really see, well, how am I feeling? So an example of sad, I could say, oh, I feel sad. But underneath sad, there's all these other emotions: lonely, vulnerable, despair, guilty, depressed, hurt. Well, those are different, right? Those are all kind of different. Yes, sad is the overarching thing, but there's something going on. There's a root issue going on. And say maybe I'm feeling sad and I've identified that I'm feeling lonely. Well, even there, maybe it's isolated. Maybe it's abandoned. Maybe something happened and I'm feeling triggered and I'm feeling alone and I'm feeling like, gosh, I've been abandoned. People don't care about me. And it's triggering this loneliness and this sadness. And so I would encourage you guys to take a peek at one of these wheels, print it out, really look at it yourself, because emotions are cool. I will say I've gotten on this journey now that I've gotten away from the fact that there's good and bad emotions. I can really see the beauty in it because with emotions, they give us clues to root issues, right? Like maybe there's something deeper going on. And if I don't address this deep root issue, then I'm not going to be able to work through it. So the beauty of emotions is that they give us clues. And the more our emotional health improves, the better our life can become. The more we can go out there and live our dreams and change the world and make the most of this one life that we have to live. So all emotions are good. There's no bad emotions. Emotions give us clues, but the key is for some of those, maybe a little bit more harsh emotions, is that we just don't want to stay in them, right? We just don't want to soak in them, take a bath, stay in them for years, right? We want to be able to move through them. Now, I am in a Bible study right now with my church, and we are going through a book by John Mark Comer called Practicing the Way. And with it, we have this little workbook, there's some videos, and a couple weeks ago, we went through this one section, and they talked about emotions. And they didn't have the wheel, but they had a list of all these different emotions. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm into this stuff. And they had this section that I want to kind of teach you, and they were talking about culture's response to pain. And so what I mean by pain is like painful emotions, emotions like I used to label as bad. The ones that they're not bad, they give us clues. We just don't want to hang out there. But they talked about how culture teaches us to manage emotions. 3 ways: deny, detach, and drug. So when it comes to denial, it means like, okay, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling vulnerable, whatever it is. And maybe you went through something and it was really, really, really hard. And your default is to deny. Well, it's okay. It's not that bad. There's a plan for everything. Other people have it worse. We deny what we're actually feeling. We deny what we're going through because it just feels too hard to actually go through it or to feel the things we're feeling. That is the most common one. Next is detach. Detaching, not allowing yourself to feel the emotions. It is what it is. Now, this can even look like dissociation. I actually, kind of looking back on my own journey, when I dealt with some of the most painful emotions, I actually was dissociating. I was completely detached from those emotions. The last one is drugging. And while for some people this might look like drugs and alcohol, drugging is simply something that you do to distract you from the pain of the hard emotion that you don't want to feel. So we all have our drug of choice. And so for some people that does look like alcohol. For some people that does look like drugs. It could look like pain medications, but it could also look like work. Diving yourself so heavy into work or into your career or into your side hustle in a way that's unhealthy because you're using that as a way to distract from the pain, to drug yourself to not feel it. It could also look like relationships, romance. It could look like social media. It could look like entertainment, and not saying that any of those are like bad in themselves, but it's a matter of like, how are we using it? Are we using it to drug? Are we using it to distract us from the pain? So when when I learned that in this little Bible study, how culture teaches us with our emotions, we typically deny, detach, or drug. I was like, oh yeah, I do all of the above. And when I think back to when I was going through some of the harder parts of my mental health journey, I could actually identify very clearly how I was doing all three of those things. So, so I think one part of this conversation of emotions is first off identifying what is your kind of relationship with emotions. Do you label them as good or bad? Are there certain ones that you avoid? Are there certain emotions you don't want to feel because they feel too painful? And then when those more harder emotional things come up, what do you do? Do you deny? Do you detach? Do you drug? Awareness is great, but I think the bigger question is, well, what do I do with these emotions? And I don't have all of the answers, but one of the best things we could do is first off, notice the emotion. For many of us, we didn't learn emotional health. I mean, I feel like me, I was born in 1983, and I feel like a lot of emotions was like push it down, suck it up, don't tell anyone. Not so healthy. And I will say things are changing, and I teach my kids very different than that. But a lot of us aren't in tune with our emotions, and it can be really hard to even notice when we're feeling an emotion. So the first part is to notice that darn emotion, then to name it. That's where that little emotion wheel comes in, actually giving it a name for I feel this. Then allow yourself to feel it. This has been the hardest part for me. I will say on my journey, actually, anger is a new emotion that I am learning to feel and understanding that for me and the season that I've been going through, anger is healthy. I look back on things I've been through and I'm like, I should have been real angry, and I wasn't. So for me, anger is a new emotion that I'm allowing myself to feel. Like, I'm allowed to feel angry. That's not bad. But there is righteous and just anger that is actually very, very good. So allow yourself to feel the emotion. But then here's the kicker, you guys. You need to move through the emotions, not stay there, not stay stuck. And this is where I'm talking about the big guns. Depending on your situation, I mentioned before, I'm in therapy. I go to see a counselor every single month. This is where, for some of you, seeing a counselor can benefit, right? So for me, what I do is I'm noticing my emotions, I'm naming it, I'm allowing myself to feel it, but then I'm moving through it. How I move through it is, for me personally, I do bring it to God, but then I also work with my counselor. So there's a lot of benefit in having a professional. So if you find yourself stuck of like, okay, Katie, well, now I feel all these stupid emotions, but I find myself like, I don't know how to move through it. That's where a professional might come in because, again, I am not the expert. I am just the student. So, oh, I'm doing great on time. My goal was to move through this episode fast because I got to drive my son to school. So, reflections. I hope that you found this discussion helpful as we're talking about managing our emotions. And what I want to encourage you guys to do today and over the next week is I want you to really evaluate, first off, are there certain emotions that you feel like you shouldn't feel? Are you like, I can't feel angry. I can't feel sad. I can't be scared. I gotta be tough. Are there certain emotions that you feel are bad emotions, like you're not allowed to feel them? Next, think about when those emotions do hit, because even though you might think they're bad emotions, they're still gonna hit. When they do hit, how do you manage your emotions? Do you deny? Do you detach? Do you drug? And then, most importantly, what I want you to be doing is I want to encourage you to be mindful today, and I want you to start noticing your emotions. I want you to start noticing your emotions and then naming them. Again, go Google emotion wheel. There's tons of them. I even found like a feelings wheel for cats. It's cracking up. It's like it broke down like the zoomies. Like, I'm like, what? But anyways, calm.com is a great one. It's a really good one, and I'm sure there's probably even better ones out there. But be mindful today, notice your emotions, name them, feel them, and move through them. So you guys, as I wrap this up, I just really want to emphasize that emotional and mental health are an important aspect of whole health, of all areas of health, and I want each and every one of you to live your very best life. And that looks like taking care of every single part of us. You know, the better you get at this, the better we get at managing our emotional health, the better we'll get in all areas. I heard this analogy once and I really like it about how like we have our phone, and the phone has an operating system, and on on the phone is different apps, and there's periodically updates to the operating system. And as we update our phones, sometimes it's annoying because, you know, things change. Um, as we update our phones, like the apps get better. And sometimes if we don't update the operating system, suddenly apps stop working on the phone, right? Like, okay, you needed to update your phone 10 iterations ago, and now these apps aren't going to work because they're moving along with the updated operating system. So I really look at our emotional mental health is that we are upgrading our operating system. And by doing that, upgrading our operating system, everything else is improved because of it. You're going to have more joy in your life. You're going to be a better partner, a better spouse, a better friend, a better entrepreneur. It really has this trickle down effect. It's like we are working on our operating system. So, another thing I do want to say is that some of the most amazing entrepreneurs that I know are in therapy because they understand the value of emotional mental health. So it really, really is important. I do want to say, regardless of your journey, how you might be feeling with your emotional health, there's no shame in this game. Wherever you're at, I do feel like we are in different places for a reason. And I hope that some of you heard this message and like it hit you right in the gut and you're like, oh, okay, Katie, did you record this for me? Maybe. I mean, literally, I just decided to talk about this last minute. So maybe this was exactly for you. But I want to encourage each and every one of you to keep going. I love being an entrepreneur. I'm not a side hustler anymore. I'm a full hustler. But one of the best parts about it is that I do get to live my dreams. And because I'm living my dreams and using the gifts that God gave me, I'm able to change the world. And again, I want that for each and every one of you. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to find out about more of the ways that we could work together, go to katiedodd.com. That is my Linktree page. And have the very best week. And I will see you guys next week on the podcast. And I will make sure the next one isn't late. Bye, friends.